Sweet.
Cool. Right on, man.
Right. Let's get started here then. I'm here today with Joshua Wayne Billingsley. Fantastic trumpet player. Great guy. Tell us a little bit about your musical background.
Sure, Nick. I'd be happy to. So, like most people, I started in middle school band. I wasn't fortunate enough to get to start in elementary school like some of the kids up here in the Midwest. I started in sixth grade. Was by no means a prodigy when I started. I was pretty terrible when I started, and just practiced a whole lot to kind of get to where I'm at. I did my bachelor's at Winthrop University in Rock Hill, South Carolina. I started off as a music ed major, but after learning about what all goes into being a public school teacher in South Carolina, I was just like, I think I'm just going to do performance and just, play and teach trumpet. So I did that. And then I worked on cruise ships after my bachelor's degree for Royal Caribbean Cruises. I did a contract in the Southern and Eastern Caribbean, and then another one in the Mediterranean that was fun. I did the lead chair on my first contract and the jazz chair on my second contract. And then I met a guy while I was doing cruise ships who got me in touch with the faculty here at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, where I came out and did my master's degree in jazz performance. And that was a blast. I learned a ton in the 2 years that I was here. And then I was really lucky to the same guy that got me hooked up with the graduate program at the University of Illinois. It's the same guy that got me in the Ringling Brothers circus gig too. So when I started my master's, he finished his doctorate and got hooked up with that gig. And then right as I finished my master's, or a couple months after I finished my master's, the trumpet spot opened up and he just shot me. I just got a random message on Facebook one day. It was like, hey man, do you have any audition tapes? Do you have any clips of you playing? And I just happened to be playing a musical that week. So I was like, well, here, let me record some clips while I'm doing this musical. And, one thing led to another. And then, so I started doing that, playing with the Ringling Brothers on Barnum and Bailey Circus, which was intense. And so I did that until they shut down in 2017. And then I moved to Austin, Texas, and lived in a hotel my first week. Didn't really have anything lined up. I just heard it was a cool city that, with cool people and a good music scene. So I lived in a hotel and then found some roommates on Craigslist and went from there. And after about 2 years, I had enough going on to where I didn't have to have a part-time job. I was just playing and teaching full-time. And then I decided to come back up here so I could do my doctorate because I figured this was a great time to go ahead and just do that, before I got too busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just hanging out, waiting for that program to start. It'll start fall of next year. So I'm just hanging out and working on some stuff that I've been wanting to do. That I haven't had time to do, and just enjoying the time that I have to practice before things start to pick up again.
Oh yeah. Speaking on that, what is your practice regimen like right now? Like, are you doing anything specifically to prepare for the doctorate program?
So for the doctoral program, I need to be better about practicing tunes. That's what I have a list of tunes that I need to be practicing, but I haven't started hitting yet. But mostly what I'm doing right now is I'm doing a lot of maintenance practice, really, just to keep my chops up since there aren't a ton of gigs right now. So one thing that I do every day is buzz on the lead pipe. In fact, I did that today. I got up this morning and I buzzed on my lead pipe and then took a little bit of time off. And then I did these other exercises that I came up with afterwards. And I came home. At 4 o'clock. Took like a 20-minute nap, and then came downstairs to prepare for this. And I'm pretty sure everything's working. I'm pretty sure I can just pick up my horn and at least get up to a double G really easily. There it is. It's just it's pretty cool that I have these things that I do in the morning that just let those notes be there for me without having to do a whole 45-minute practicing all these different things. I buzz on the lead pipe a specific way, and then I do have these other exercises that I came up with, and those do a really good job of just making sure my chops stay maintained. And I spend maybe 30 minutes between the two, and that's including my rests that I do with those routines.
Right on, right on. And you don't keep any secrets when it comes to your secrets to success, quote unquote.
Yeah.
You take that information and you want to share it, can you talk a little bit about your books you've developed?
Yeah, I'd love to, man. So let's start with the lead pipe buzzing books, and that's what I do first in the day. So this book I released second, but I actually wanted to release first, but I figured my other book, Flow Studies, would be a little bit more familiar with people. But man, lead pipe buzzing, I got turned on to at the beginning of my master's degree. I went out to St. Louis and took a lesson with Jim Manley, who's a really big guy down there, and he got me turned on to doing pedal tones on the lead pipe, and that was all I did for a really long time, and it helped a lot with like focusing stuff and getting my sound centered, and just getting things lined up, you know. But then while I was down in Austin, I had a roommate who studied with Mike Steinell at the University of North Texas. And he told me that Mike's big thing on the lead pipe was trying to center in the middle G on the lead pipe, which you know, if you've ever tried to buzz on the lead pipe, you know that's not like a natural partial on it. You know, it's very much a manipulated pitch. So I tend to obsess on things whenever I'm not able to do it. You know, I just kind of like sit there and like it's all I do until I figure it out. So the exercises I have in my book are things that I use to kind of gain fluidity and proficiency on the lead pipe past, you know, just buzz the open partials, you know. Because a lot of people, they'll do like the concert E flat. There it is. They'll do that, and then they'll play. And you know, those are usually the only two partials that people really do anything with.
Yeah,
and
those are more natural pitches.
Huh? Yeah, yeah, they are. Right, yeah, they those are like it's like an overtone on the trumpet, you know, those like have a slot on the lead pipe. But I found that just learning to manipulate those partials helps a lot with focusing my sound, especially that middle partial between high G and that F. You know, I found that the more that I can iron out that partial, just the better everything lines up for me on the horn. Because like a lot of students that I have, whenever they try to extend that partial down from that high G, they'll get to a point where they kind of like fall off of it, like that, and there's this gap in there. And to me, that's whenever I'm playing, I find that whenever that's happening, it's a sign that my air isn't as focused and centered as it should be. And I find that if I can get like a continuous sound, like there it is. I had to think about it for a second. I'm like, where's that pitch? You know, I don't have a reference pitch near me. I usually do it with the tuner on. But you know, I find that if you know, just the better that I've gotten at ironing out that middle partial like that, the easier the trumpet is for me to play. The easier it is for me to play louder as well. You know, one of the things that I'm really big on is practicing really, really soft. You know, I just think like the better you can play the trumpet at a really soft dynamic, the better the trumpet will be able to play at every level. You know, it's a lot easier for me to play louder now that I've spent so much time practicing softer than it is if I just practice loud all the time, you know?
Yeah, I know that's one of the big things Herbert Clark always said. Just he would like to practice quiet because he was always performing so loud, you know?
Yeah, man, and it's you know it's kind of like what I love about the trumpet. It's kind of like whatever you want to do, you practice the opposite. You want to be able to play loud, you play really soft. You know, with high notes, the pedal tones help. I don't know, maybe not with high notes. With high notes, you need to practice high notes. You know, you got to get used to playing up there. Hey, thanks. What is that? CG trumpet stuff. I'm glad you're relating to this stuff, man. Thanks. But yeah, man. So like going back to like buzzing on the lead pipe. You know, the first thing that I did with buzzing on the lead pipe. Hey, what's up, Sparky? Thanks for tuning in, man. The first thing that I like to do, or that I was introduced, like I said, with Jim Manley, was working on those pedal tones. And while there's people listening, I want to share how there's the way that I practice pedal tones on the lead pipe, because it's different than how I play pedal tones on the horn. You know, like if I pop my tuning slide back in, like whenever I play pedal tones on the horn, I like to play them like with a full sound, like. I'll go for a full sound when I'm playing pedals on the horn. However, I find that on the lead pipe, practicing them really soft and working on creating an aperture tunnel, which is a term that I got hip to by the teacher named Pops McLaughlin, who is, in my opinion, like the best trumpet teacher alive right now. I mean, he's who got, like guys like Herb Alpert, like when he wanted to come out of retirement, he went to Pops to get his chops back in shape, and I mean, the School of Music at UCLA is named after Herb Alpert, so I figure if he's good enough if he's good enough for Herb Alpert to go to, then yeah, he probably has a lot of stuff to offer. So what I do whenever I'm practicing the pedals on the lead pipe is I'm actually working on getting my lips off of my teeth and trying to get the center of my lips as trying to get as like focused of a buzz as possible right at the very front of my lips when I'm playing really, really soft. And let's see if I can demonstrate this. Like, and you can see like whenever I'm doing that, there's a little bit of rolling in and out that I'm doing as I do that.
Mm-hmm.
And like with everything that I do on the lead pipe, I try to keep it really, really soft. Now, when I'm going down to the double pedals, it just kind of gets louder because so much of your lip is vibrating when you get down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes more air. Like, I don't know if I can play that double pedal laugh any softer. But for me, I know a lot of not a lot, but I know some guys that are really into upper register stuff don't practice pedal tones for one reason or another. But for me, I find it really helps promote relaxation and just learning the difference between warm air and like fast air. Because like as I'm going down there, it's definitely more of like I'm fogging up the mirror with my air. Even when I'm playing on that really, really soft, like. Even on that really soft buzz, I'm still thinking warmer as I go down. Whereas like when I go, as I go up to like a double G on the lead pipe, and that was with one hand too, everyone. Like,
No pressure, man.
huh?
No pressure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, just as little pressure as I can get. But whenever I go up there, I'm always, I'm definitely thinking like fast air. So let me share something else that I got that's been really helpful with me locking all this range stuff in. So this is something that I picked up from Brad Good, who's the trumpet professor at the University of Colorado at Boulder. One of the things that I did when I was on the road with the Ringling Brothers was every major city that we were in, I tried to hit up someone in that city to go take a lesson with. So Brad was who I hit up whenever we were in Denver because he's friends with my professor from my master's degree. So I had heard about him through my professor, so I was like, oh, now's a great time to go see him. And he was really helpful at helping me like get more consistency in my upper register. And what he shared with me was basically, as you're going up, he says that he's aiming his air further down. So like whenever he's playing like a low C, he's like buzzing at an angle kind of like, or not buzzing, but blowing his air at an angle like this in the mouthpiece. And then as he goes higher, he's aiming his air further and further down in the cup. So I've got a pencil right here, and I'll show you the same thing he showed me. So like on the throat of the mouthpiece, he imagines a low C is about like right there, and then by the time you get to double C, you're almost blowing at like the bottom of the rim.
Mm-hmm.
And like I definitely feel like that translates to that's definitely what I'm doing. Like somewhere around there. The partial doesn't really slot in very well in the lead pipe, but whenever I'm getting up there, I mean, I'm going like almost like straight down to my chin when I'm doing all that stuff. So those are things that have just been really helpful with me figuring out just the easy upper register stuff and things like that. Another thing that I'm really big into is starting everything with a breath attack. So like this morning when I was doing my lead pipe buzzing and these other exercises that I came up with, which we can talk about here in a minute, I start all of my warm-ups with a breath attack, just starting with my lips closed and then thinking like I'm thinking the syllables pu, like poo, like Um, and just trying to start with the least amount of air possible. I'm just trying to find the bare minimum it takes to make a sound on the trumpet. Um, and then I find that if I can, get that really, really soft dynamic happening at just, the least amount of effort it takes to make a sound on my trumpet when I'm warming up with a breath attack, then it makes things a lot easier later in the day when I come back to play later. And then also I kind of use that as like a gauge for when I need to stop when I'm warming up. So like when I'm doing my lead pipe stuff and my flow studies, the other thing that I like to practice in the mornings, I'll use the rule of five, where if I'm playing and my note, like when I blow my air and I don't get a response right away, if I do that, if I can't get an instant response 5 times after I've like kind of worked out the kinks and I'm like in the middle of doing my exercises, like if I get to a point where I have five like air balls like with my notes, then to me that's just an indicator that it's time to stop, and I'll just rest for a bit and then come back within after like 30 minutes to an hour, and usually after that things are right back there and happening again.
Yeah, exactly. It's like beating a dead horse.
Yeah, you can't, I don't think it's productive to force your lips to respond in your warm-up routine. I think it's really crucial to train your lips to respond to just easy, efficient air.
Yeah,
What it,
I really like that you were talking about using the least amount of air possible to get a sound. Because if you take off your mouthpiece and just tap into your lead pipe, the trumpet makes sound on its own. You don't need that much
hmm
air produced
It's a
to.
pedal C. Yeah, that's or if your tuning slide's connected, it comes out as a pedal C through the bell. So think about it. I mean, that's all the air it takes to play a pedal C.
Exactly.
So I mean, Bud Brisbois had a great analogy for that, where he would say, if I use a cup of air on a low C, then I use half a cup on a middle C, a quarter cup on a high C, and an eighth of a cup on a double C. I think he might have used different measurements, but that's and it's definitely true, man. Like it takes faster air to play higher and more air to play louder. One of the reasons I wanted to put out these books is because I know so many trumpet players get hung up when they get told just use more air. Just use your air, and to a lot of people that doesn't really help them. They start using more air, and what I find ends up happening is that they'll just end up spreading their aperture and just losing control, and they may get to a point where they can play. Like for myself, I was able to play up to a double G like my junior year of high school, I think. But that remained my cap for until the summer after my master's degree, when I sat down and forced myself to figure out how to play more efficiently. And that's really what I was doing, man. I was just playing too loud. A lot of trumpet players, I think, play to hear themselves, which is just a losing battle, because whenever we play, our sound is coming out of the bell, and what we hear is our sound bouncing off a wall and coming back to us. So we're not getting an accurate representation of what's actually coming out of our bell when we practice. So, I find that just, practicing softer than, practicing really, really soft is helpful, because even if you think you're playing at like a super pianissimo level, people are still going to be able to hear you. The trumpet it's a naturally loud instrument. I mean, that's what it was for. It was made to, signal people in wars back in ancient times. It's a signaling instrument that is made to be heard. So I just feel like there's no reason to bear down and kill yourself, playing in the upper register when people are going to hear it anyway.
Make the horn work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Work
Yeah.
for
Yeah, Roger Ingram has a great saying, have faith in your projection. And I think that's so true, man. Another thing that I've done that's really helpful is whenever I practice, I have these noise canceling AirPods now that I got for Christmas, which have been awesome. But before these, I used these earplugs called ear racers, like EAR racers, and they're these high fidelity earplugs that mine are a little yellow now after years of being in my ear, but they're these high fidelity earplugs that block out certain frequencies without totally blocking off your ear. And I just find that having something to cut out the feedback that you get from your room has been really helpful for me improving as a trumpet player, because I know, especially when I was younger, I would rely on the feedback from the room to be able to play. And if I was in a room that was really dead, like for example, in my master's degree, my professor's studio was a really, really acoustically dead studio. He had tons of carpet and soundproofing on the wall and stuff like that. And I really struggled to play in there at first because I was so used to the feedback from the room being my guide for how I was playing, you know. And I didn't realize at the time I was just playing too dang loud, you know. But having, you know, playing with earplugs in has been really helpful for me, just internalizing the feeling of what it plays, or of what it feels like to play centered and without working too hard, you know. So on that note, we can, I think that's probably enough about talking on the lead pipe, you know. But I can talk about a little bit about the other exercises that I came up with that I call flow studies, which are, you know, homophonic to the traditional studies that everyone knows, put out by Chikowitz, which are great. I mean, the original flow studies are good for getting used to the middle range of the trumpet, but I feel like a lot of people get so obsessed with crafting the perfect tone that they end up chasing tone and, you know, getting bigger equipment, bigger horns, you know, opening up their throat and stuff like that, and playing louder and louder and louder. And eventually they get to a point where they're just playing with really spread chops, and you know, they start to have endurance issues, range issues, accuracy issues. And they may be able to sound really good for a short amount of time, but, you know, I just don't think they would be able to do something like I was doing, like playing the circus book 3 times a day. You know, there's no way I personally could have done that book on really big equipment. You know, the only way I was able to make it through that was by playing efficiently, you know. And if anyone wants to see what I'm talking about, I posted a picture, or I put up a video of that circus book earlier today on my Instagram, if you want to check that out later and see what I'm talking about. But so these other exercises that I came up with are basically a combination of traditional flow studies and then stamp studies with some other stuff sprinkled in there too. Part of the reason I combined them like this is because after seeing so many arguments on online forums of which is better, flow studies or stamp studies, and hearing guys, you know, fight with each other and get into these really nasty arguments over which one's better, and I'm just like, they're basically the same thing, you know. I mean, they're just, you know, I mean, they're very similar means to the same end. I just, you know, I started practicing the regular flow studies up an octave, really just kind of out of spite with from my former professor that I had in my undergrad. And then as I was doing them up an octave, I was like, well, you know, I don't really want to just end in the middle register. I want to be able to connect this to the low register too. And then so I just realized, oh, well, hey, you know, if you play a regular flow study, it's like, well, hey, I'm ending on a middle C now, and that's where a regular stamp study starts. So it's just like, it just kind of naturally feeds into each other really well if you start it that way. So that's where I got the idea. And then going back to Pops McLaughlin, who I talked about earlier, one of the things that he talked to me in the lesson that I had with him out in Dallas was starting a G on top of the staff as my set point. So like a lot of trumpet players, they'll use like middle G or middle C as the first note that they play on the trumpet, and that's like kind of their reference point for what they default back to, you know. And Pops, I think he's right on the money with G on top of the staff as being a better set point for us, because whenever G on top of the staff is our set point, you know, double G is just as far away as G in the staff, you know. So it makes the upper register a lot less scary whenever you get used to starting up there. And I also find too that, especially whenever you practice that, getting that G on top of the staff really, really soft, it really aids in just making the rest of the horn so much easier to play, you know. You know, being able to play a G on top of the staff, like, you know, really soft like that with the breath attack, makes it really easy to just go, you know, get a full sound on a middle G I mean, and you see my expression. I'm like not really doing. It doesn't feel like I'm doing anything whenever I play with a full sound like that. It's like I'm just stepping on the gas a little bit more than I am from that set point, but it still makes it so much easier to get around the horn, you know. So that's where I got the first part of my flow study exercise. You know, just getting that G set point, and then combining the two flow studies, and then the breath attack comes from the Shoebrook book. You know, the Shoebrook lip trainers, which are really big with a lot of classical guys. So, I think it's really beneficial. Basically, it's a whole book on just having you do breath attacks. And so I just, that's where I got the idea of starting my warm-ups with the breath attack, is to just keep everything as easy and as efficient as possible, because I found, like, especially like when I was younger, I was definitely guilty of using my tongue to like kind of jumpstart the notes when I wasn't getting a good response. It's like, well, if I just whack it really hard with my tongue, I know it's going to come out. But as I'm always just trying to get better and better at this, because this is, I mean, let's be real, this is just like a torture device that we play. I mean, it's
We make and hope for pretty sounds to come out.
yeah, man, just blow and hope. But so a lot of the practicing that I do is to try to eliminate as much as that. Like, oh gosh, I hope this note comes out. And just make it to where I know exactly what to do to make this note come out. So like when I'm doing the flow studies, like I'll do the one in the key in our key of B flat, so I can demonstrate like how I utilize the G set point. So I'm going to start this note on a breath attack, and then I'm going to finger down to the first note of this exercise, and then play the rest of it. And I'll just go up to like to the fifth of the scale, like. There we go. Little rough landing on that low B flat, but that's the general idea of that exercise. You're just always reverting to that G on top of the staff set point. And I mean, look, I've just been talking for like the last few minutes, and I just got a high F to come out. I mean, it's a lot less scary playing up there. With just warming up this way. And I remember like back in college, I used to like. Have this like 45-minute warm-up routine of like log tones, which long tones are great. I mean, you definitely need to practice long tones, but I feel like if you're not playing the horn efficiently, then long tones can actually be more detrimental than beneficial. Especially if you're just like mashing the horn on your face while you're playing them. I think long tones can do more harm than good. But anyway, I would do like long tones, and then flow studies, and then like scales and lip slurs and all this stuff that took like between 45 minutes to an hour. And then I would come back and like, I mean, it would be like, maybe I'd be able to get a high F out in jazz band, and, maybe I would just go like, and just air comes out when I try it, So I've just found that, warming up this way makes it a lot easier for me to access these notes. Like, let's see. Just picking off a high F, just like that, man. It just makes it so much easier to do that, or for me at least, warming up this way. So that's why I put out these two books, is because I promised myself that if I ever figured this out, I would want to share it with everyone. And then also, since I was 15, I mean, my goal since I've been 15 is to be a college trumpet professor. I remember being 15 years old and just learning that was a thing that existed. Because I didn't take lessons in middle school or high school. There wasn't anyone in my area that taught them. I was just in my school band program and just went home and practiced a whole bunch. And so wait, shoot, train of thought. Where did it go?
Oh, you're well on your way to becoming
trumpet professor. Yeah. So I just remember that being a thing. And I was just like, yep, that's it. Like, just as soon as I heard that was a thing, something just clicked in my head, and I just knew that's what I wanted to do with my life, So, so these are the concepts that I use with all of my students, and I've had a few, not a few. I've had about a dozen people do the special that I'm offering now, and for for people tuning in, today's the last day that I'm running this special on my website. The link is in my bio on my Instagram profile, but for those who may view this later, my website is www.jwbtpt.com. And so I've got a special on there where you can pick up both of my books and get a 30-minute lesson for $25 right now, which I think is a steal. I mean,
dude, that's a steal. How much is the like average lesson cost these days? Is what, like $40 an hour?
yeah, yeah. If you're generous with your time, yeah, $40. But I mean, I've paid. I mean, like when I went out and took my day lesson with Potts McLaughlin, I'm pretty sure I paid him like $400 to go out there for the day, for a 5 or 6 hour lesson. I've paid other people $200 for a 2 hour lesson. I mean, it just varies from person to person.
Yeah, $20 for a half-hour lesson and 2 books. I mean, doesn't get much better than that.
I really don't think it does. Especially with the lead pipe stuff that I've come out with. I don't think, as far as I know, no one has dived as deep into doing stuff on the lead pipe as I have. And I mean, I feel like the stuff that I've demonstrated in this talk so far, really speaks for itself that it works. I mean, all I did on this morning was buzz on the lead pipe, and I did my flow studies up to the fifth. I didn't even go up to double C this morning. But all that stuff is coming out on my horn now, because I mean, I went and worked a full 9 hours today. And, I was able to come home and, just start playing double C stuff on my horn. It's really cool, man. Like, this is stuff that like 5 years ago, I wasn't able to do this. And, in the last 5 years, I feel like I've done a lot in really figuring this stuff out. And those concepts are what I put into these 2 books to just help other people who may be stuck at the same point, where they're able to get a certain point in the upper register really loud and full, but they just can't break through to that next level. There's just it's like you're hitting a wall with your range. And so these concepts that I've come up with are for people. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily for beginners, but for people who have like a proficient understanding of the instrument, but can't, for whatever reason, can't break through that ceiling with their playing. I truly believe that the concepts in this book will help get you there. Some other things that I've done that really help practice, that really help not practice, but like cement these concepts are like how I practice my Clark ones. So this is a concept I got from Dave Ballou, who was the lead trumpet player for the Maria Schneider Orchestra. He's a trumpet professor at Towson University, and when I was working on cruise ships, my first cruise ship ported out of Baltimore, and so I went and took a lesson with him while I was out there. If you can't tell, like whenever I'm in a new city, I always try to seek out whoever the professor is in that city and take a lesson with them. But he talked to me about what he calls the spider exercise. And basically you start at one point and then you go up a half step and down a half step, and you keep building, up and until you're at both extremes of the horn. So like whenever I'm practicing my Clark ones, I personally like to do them a full octave now, but like just starting with half an octave, like I'll do them at that, and then you go up a half step and then down a half step, all while doing them really soft. And with those two, I'll just go ahead and spoiler alert for people who may not want to pick up a copy of my book but just want a free tip. I always rest for 20 seconds between exercises, and that's just I've just found that to be the magic number for me. It may not work for some people, but for me, like whenever I do an exercise, I'll do like a full chromatic scale like that, up and down 4 times, and then I rest for 20 seconds before doing the next half step, and it takes about 5 minutes for me to get through the full range of my horn doing that way, and until I'm ending up like, and then there we go. I had to remember the fingering for C sharp.
Hey, there's only 3 buttons, man.
Right? Yeah, I know. You think I could figure out how to count to 3 by now? But yeah, man, that's like those are a lot of the things that I do that have really helped me figure out this consistency that I've been really fortunate to figure out in the upper register. Which all translates to, man, just making the rest of the trumpet so much easier to play. I mean, like when I can go up to when I like how I just demonstrated, going up to F sharp like that without even really thinking about it, man, like, I mean, having to play a passage that goes up to like an A or something, that's like, okay, cool, no big deal. And that's, I mean, I don't know, like, who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to not be worried about what they have to play on the trumpet? It's just like, I mean, I don't know, man.
It's supposed to be fun.
Let's see. Yes, so I use the stopwatch on my phone, ACDC. I use the stopwatch app on my phone, and if sometimes I'll use the tuner app on my phone while I'm playing, or Drum Genius is another app I like too. I like to use Drum Genius in place of a metronome, just because for me it's a lot more fun to play with an actual drum groove than just a click. But if I'm doing that, then I'll use the stopwatch on my iPad, and I'll just have both next to me. But yeah, I'll play, and then I'll hit the stopwatch and wait for it to hit 20, because I find that if I count it myself, and I've tested this before, if I count it myself, then I always rush it because I'm just impatient and just want to keep playing the trumpet because I love it so much. Um, and then another thing that I'll do is, like, once I get to certain points, like in that Clark exercise, once I get to the octave from like low C and middle C, I'll rest for a minute before continuing with the rest of it. And then I'll usually rest for 3 to 5 minutes before going to the next thing that I'm going to practice in that session. And I try not to make my practice sessions longer than like maybe 40 minutes. But I'll definitely, like, especially in my later sessions in the day, I'll definitely get to points where I'm playing for an hour or so, and then it's like, okay, I have to rest. Otherwise I'm going to. I just feel like, it's easy to keep going and blowing, and then it gets to a point where you're just being detrimental on your chops.
I know you can really hurt yourself if you keep pushing too hard.
For sure, man. Um, so let's talk about the gear that I'm playing on right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So this mouthpiece that I'm on, this is the longest I've played on the same mouthpiece since I switched off a 3C in high school. So I've been on a mouthpiece safari up until 2 years ago, and now I'm on this is a Legends brass, and this is their Broadway model. Excuse me. So it's a medium shallow cup with a rim that's comparable to like a 10.5C. But it's different than a 10.5C because I've played on a 10.5C before and it didn't work for me. So whatever Derek, he's the owner of Legends Brass, whatever he did with this to vary it from a 10.5C, it worked for me. I went out to his house in Tennessee and tried out a bunch of different mouthpieces, and just wound up with this one. And what I like about this is that there's a series with these. So this is the Broadway, it's a medium shallow. And then there's also the Broadway Legit, which is a little bit deeper of a cup. It's like a medium cup with one size bigger backbore. I think it has a 20. I think this is a 27 backbore and Legit, or a throat. I mean, this is a 27 throat and the Legit has a 26, I think. And then there's also a Broadway Lead, which is a shallow cup, and I think it's a 28 throat instead of a 27. But they all have the same rim on it, which is really helpful because for years I would have like my Legit mouthpiece and my Lead mouthpiece, and they would be really different sizes. And I could make it work by shoving the horn on my face harder with my Lead mouthpiece, but then eventually, I would get to the point that a lot of people get to, where they start to get grooves on the back of their top lips and the teeth cutting into it and stuff. And like, if you look really closely on my lip, I've got like almost kind of like a permanent scar right here from college, from just going too hard in pep band. But it doesn't really affect things now. But yeah, man, just sticking to the same rim has been really helpful. But I find that just the regular Broadway, the medium shallow cup, for everything that I do, like it really works. I mean, I rarely do I pull out the Legit or the Leads. It's just the Broadway. Just the medium shallow cup. It just really works for me. And then the horn I'm playing on, you probably can't tell from looking at it. It's actually a Bach. This is the Bach commercial trumpet. And I've stripped the lacquer off of it because, except for on the inside of the bell, I left the lacquer on the inside of the bell. Because while I was on tour with the Ringling Brothers, I had Jason Harrelson. I went out and visited his shop and had him put some modifications on it. So like, I've got his finger ring right here with this pinky rest that I really like. This is great for helping keeping my pinky out of here and not pulling on the horn. Then I've got his ergonomic finger rings right here. And he added this Saturn water key right here, which is cool because you can like press it from any angle and it'll empty the spit valve. So like when you got to empty your spit on the fly, it doesn't matter where you hit it from, you can get your spit emptied. And then this right here is the real moneymaker on this horn. So let me take my mouthpiece out. This is what Jason calls his VGR, his Venturi Gap Receiver. So this piece actually unscrews right here.
Whoa.
And I've got a set of these inserts right here. And let's see if I can get my camera to focus on it. Kind of. There we go. And you can see faintly there's like a line right here. That's where the actual opening of the Venturi is. And that's where my lead pipe is starting basically. So this opening right here, you can get these inserts in different Venturis and different widths. And so for reference, like when I bought this horn from the factory, it came with I think a 353 Venturi. And then when I went to Jason's shop in the circus, he downsized me to a 343. That's like 10 millimeters down.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing on like a 2 millimeter gap, I think. And then when I was down in Austin, I wanted to take it even further. So now I'm actually on the smallest Venturi that he offers, or offered at the time. I don't know, maybe he's made some smaller ones. But now I'm playing on a 332 Venturi, which is like pretty small. I mean, it's like that's like what like the really old Paris made trumpets were, had for their openings and stuff like that. And then I'm playing on no gap right now. I'm playing on the smallest gap setting that I can get without my mouthpiece bottoming out on the insert. And I find that it makes a huge difference. Like if I pop this receiver off, I'm not gonna mess with that right now. But if I pop it off and take the insert off, it makes, I can feel a huge difference versus when I had the insert on. My slots are in really different places. But for me, I really like the feeling of having no gap because it brings all the partials really close together. I found that like the wider the gap is, the harder my partial slot. But I feel like that also translates to having to work more to get the partials to slot. And with no gap, it's like the horn's more slippery, which makes me practice more. I have to be more accurate. But it's the payoff is that I can do stuff like do lip trills like that and jump around really, really easily, So for me, that's what I want when I play the trumpet. So that's how I have my horn set up,
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Right. Well, do you have any cool projects in the works right now?
Yes, I do actually. So I am working on shooting some YouTube videos to talk about this new trumpet that I had made at the beginning. I got this at the beginning of the pandemic and was planning on unveiling this horn at South by Southwest in 2020. Hey, thanks for tuning in, Sparky, man. Catch you later. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to perform at South by Southwest. So I've been, bouncing around the last year and I'm happy with being settled now. So we'll go ahead and start with the. So this is an electric trumpet that utilizes a piezo barrel pickup in the mouthpiece. And this is the same mouthpiece I use on my regular horn. This is the Broadway, the Legends Brass Broadway model. And what's crazy about this horn is that it has a closed bell on it. So basically, this is it's kind of like a built-in practice mute. So if I play this, let me unplug it real quick. I've got it hooked up to my monitor already, ready to go. But if I play it by itself, it's really quiet, The point of this bell is to kill the acoustic sound of the trumpet whenever you're running effects live, so that whenever I'm playing with effects, you hear the effects and not the horn. And then also, it does a really great job of solving feedback issues that you get when using effects too. Because I don't know about you, but like whenever I use a mic, man, feedback issues are always a nightmare. Like playing in live settings at the house, trying to get things out and right with your effects and not just causing ear-splitting feedback. So, I've got one of my tones pulled up now, but like, can you hear that?
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun playing with this, man. And I've got a wide range of different tones that I've made for this. So right now I'm working on shooting some YouTube videos, talking more about this horn in depth and explaining, doing more than just, a brief conversation like we're having right now, talking about it, giving some close-up shots. And then I'm also working on, one of the reasons I picked up a job lately is so I can invest in better recording equipment so I can put out an album because I've always wanted to. I've always been a writer and stuff like that. I've always heard music in my head, but I've never really had the time or the space or resources to like do anything with it, But now I finally got an office in my house and have space to work on it. So now I just gotta spin the bread to get a little bit better recording equipment so I can make an album that people actually want to buy. That's not just like recorded on my iPad or something like that, But like I say my biggest inspiration for stuff like this is the guitar player Buckethead.
Yeah.
He's a huge inspiration for me, man. He's put out over 300 albums.
Oh yeah,
And
so much music, dude.
yeah, and I love the stuff that he does, and like all of his albums, it's they're just he has a drummer that he works with, and then he just tracks all of his guitars with it, and he makes all the sounds with his guitar and stuff like that. So I really want to take this trumpet to doing things like that, where I'm recording like the bass and the rhythm parts, and then the lead parts, and then the atmospheric patty parts and stuff like that. Um, I'm having my friend Joe Anastasio. I hope I didn't butcher his last name too bad, but he's the owner of Lone Wolf Effects down in Austin, Texas. And I'm really looking forward to trying out his new line of pedals. So he just started a new line of pedals aside from his Lone Wolf audio pedals, which are mainly geared towards death metal and stuff like that. He's releasing a new line of pedals that he calls the Void, which are for like experimental sci-fi and horror effects and stuff like that. So I've got I'm on the list for his first batch for his first pedal that he calls the Void. So I should have one of those coming up soon, and I'm looking forward to getting that and messing with it and just getting weird, man. Like I love straight ahead stuff. I love all types of music, but I love weird experimental stuff too. So I'm looking forward to putting out a bunch of different albums where I'm just exploring the different sounds that I can make on this horn. Here it is again for people who want to see it. So yeah, so this is a closed bell that again it really kills the acoustic sound of the trumpet. Um,
So I'm curious, what's the resistance like? Is it comparable to like a Yamaha silent brass resistance or?
so I haven't been able to play on the new Yamaha silent brass beats that go deeper in the bell, but compared to the old school ones that kind of stick out of the bell, it's not as bad as those. You can see with my tuning side there is a bit of I do have to pull out a bit for it to play in tune.
Okay.
The pitch does go a little sharp. But as long as you get the tuning slide in the right spot, it's fine. And it's really so for if anyone's wondering, can I just use a silent brass system? Yes, you can. That's my friend who invented this bell, Justin Macadera. He invented this bell originally for his trombone, and then had the guys over at BAC. He gave me permission to let them build me a trumpet one, and and he got his start, like so many other brass players, using effects with a silent brass pedal, a silent brass mute. And so this is basically meant to be like a road ready or like a road durable version of that, because he found like when he was performing often using a silent brass mute, eventually like the cables start to go out. You've got the battery pack that hooks into the silent brass mute that's not exactly sturdy. It's not meant to be dropped and stuff like on accident. It's just not meant to be taken in and out of a case and set up and torn down
Yeah,
repeatedly. It's meant to just be like, yeah, it's meant to just be left in your house and you just put it in when you're practicing and that's it. It's not meant to be like taken in and out of the case and set up and torn down every day. So this is like a version, basically a setup that's like if you're used to running effects through a silent brass mute, this is like a version that you can take on the road and like pull it in and out of your case every day, every night, even for multiple shows if you're doing multiple shows in the same day, and it's always going to work and never going to fail. Another reason I really like this bell is because it's actually screwed on here, so I can take this off and put a regular bell on this if I want to. But especially when I'm running hot effects, you have that risk of feedback if your mute falls out. So like personally, if I'm playing a show like at a larger venue and there's an even like a 1% chance that my mute could fall out and the whole show comes crashing down from horrible feedback, I don't want to take that risk, you know?
Nope. Nope.
Yeah. I think everyone has had a mute fall out at one point or another. And even though it's like maybe it's only happened one time in your life, I personally don't want that to be the time in my life when I'm performing and running a show and my whole show comes crashing down because my mute wasn't in right, you know? So this it just eliminates any possibility of things going wrong in a live setting, so you know it's consistent and it's always going to work, you know?
That's awesome, dude. I cannot wait to hear what you come up with.
Thanks, man. I'm excited. You know, if anyone's interested in like some of the stuff that I have like idea-wise in my head, I've got some animated GIFs on my Instagram feed, and I've also made a playlist on my YouTube channel of some posts that I did back in October. They were just like mini compositions that were a minute or less that I just made using that trumpet and my iPad, and they came out okay. But it's not a quality that I would feel good releasing on a CD to sell to people, you know.
Yeah, of course.
But it was fun just to kind of shed some ideas and get some ideas out. So yeah, man.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this thing up here just because I gotta start getting ready for my rehearsal.
Sure.
But, how can people get a hold of you for lessons, your freelance services, or anything else?
So if people want to get a hold of me for lessons, I have those offered through the store on my website, which again is jwbtpt.com. So everything is so my lessons, my books are all available through the store on my website. And then I've also got my email up on my website, which if you don't want to go there, you just want to email directly. It's jwb@jwbtpt.com. So you can always hit me up there. You can find me here on Instagram. On Instagram and Facebook, I'm at jwbtpt. So you can shoot me a message on here. I'm a pretty friendly guy that's always down to talk about this stuff. You know, if you're just curious about these concepts and want to talk to me a little bit more before maybe buying my books, feel free to hit me up and talk to me, y'all. I mean, I'm always down to talk about this stuff. I love it.
Oh yeah, it's not every day you get a chance to nerd out about some trumpet stuff.
Yeah, I really enjoy getting to talk about this stuff. So, man, Nick, I want to thank you so much for bringing me on and letting me talk about this stuff.
Of course, no problem, man. Yeah, we gotta chat soon. Keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure, dude. And congratulations on the release of your new album. I'm gonna go ahead and plug that for you. You know, if anyone hasn't checked out Nick's new album with his band Fuzz Love yet, definitely do that. It's a killer album. He's got some great playing on it too. So check that out, y'all. It's definitely a good album.
I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, brother, of course.
All right. Well, you have a nice night.
Thanks, man. You too. Have a good rehearsal. I'll take it easy.